I'm tired of outdated morals. I'm just tired of outdated meanings. I just live for the things I believe in, and that gets me high.
Joining me today is one of the great centre-forwards of the British game. It is Peter Withe. How are you, Pete? If you could just come slightly closer into that microphone there, sir. We're going to talk about, because you've got a book, it's coming out, we're going to talk about your career. And firstly, we're going to start at the beginning. You were born, like many great sports people and musicians, in the wonderful city of Liverpool, wasn't you?
Yes, I was. I was born in Liverpool 8, which is round the Smithdown Road, Toxteth area, and then moved out to Speke in Liverpool because I had two older brothers, and then I had a younger sister. So we moved out to Speke, and that's where there was two catchment areas at the time. There's Speke or Kirby, and we went to Speke at the time, and that's where I basically was brought up and speak.
What age did you start playing football and develop skills that you thought you could take it on to another level?
My dad was always a keen footballer and played semi-pro, and so when we started walking, we started playing football. Yeah. That's as it went. And as you grew up, you found your best friend who had a football. Yeah. Because not many of us had football, so we found someone who had a football, and then we'd play football. And normally they wasn't very good at playing football, but they had a football. Yeah. And then we'd go down the parks, throw a couple of coats down, make the goals up. Sometimes have 20 aside, where you learnt a lot of skills of how to avoid getting kicked to death. And that's where it really started, and then we just continued from there. Started playing for the schools teams, then started playing whenever you can get a game, basically. So Saturday League, Sunday League, Wednesday Business House League in Liverpool. And just, that's the way you sort of... But there was never any coaching. It wasn't like, you never got coached or anything. You just went out and played. Whatever you learned yourself. I mean, I used to go out for hours in the street and just kick a ball around in the street on my own and practice whatever I wanted to practice, keeping the ball up, doing tricks, doing things with the ball, just learning a little bit of a trade, thinking that one day you were going to play football. And I always said to my mates that we used to go to the Gladys Street end and watch Everton play, and then I sold programmes at Everton with my uncle and my father and my brothers, and the only reason we sold programs wasn't for the money or anything, it was to get in the game. We got in the game free, so we wanted to go and watch the game. And I used to say to my mates at the time, one day I'm going to play at Goodison Park, and they were like, "No, you'll never play at Goodison Park." I'm telling you, I'm going to play at Goodison Park. And then I also said to them, "And one day I'll play at Wembley." "No, you won't play at Wembley." And I went, "Okay, we'll see."
Well, we're going to fly in and out of different eras. The Everton team that you grew up and you first loved, what players were in that team?
Oh, I mean, we had probably the best midfield team in 3 players, because we had a...
So it was the 60s?
So we had Ball, Kendall and Harvey.
Yeah.
And they were terrific players, all 3 of them, different in the style, but terrific players. And then when I first started watching them, we had the likes of Fred Pickering, we had Mike Trabilko, we had Derek Temple. So we had quite a number of good players. Brian LeBaume was a centre-half, he was the England centre-half as well. We had Jimmy Gabriel playing, he could play anywhere, he could play in midfield. One of my first managers was Alex Parker, who was the right-back, Scottish international. Left-back, funnily enough, I've seen one of the left-backs we had, a lad called Henry Newton, who played for Derby County and played a number of times at different clubs, but he was there. We had another Newton who played, who was a full-back as well. He was a left-back who come from Blackburn. So we had quite a good team, and we always sort of got a lot of Scottish players that come into the teams then. Not only Everton, I think all the teams had a lot of Scottish players. And funnily enough, I was only reading the other day about what Gordon Strachan said. and I've spoken to him a number of times, and he said there's not Scottish players who are coming out of Scotland like they did in our day. Every team had 2 or 3 Scottish players, sometimes 4 or 5 Scottish players. He said, you know, they haven't got that sort of them players coming out now, so there's no competition from sort of that, and that's probably one of the reasons why they haven't qualified, for the World Cup, although they come quite close to getting in. So, you know, there was always a lot of competitiveness. If you looked at the home championships then, and you look at the players, there was always Irish players, there was always Scottish players, there was always Welsh players, there was always that competitive edge. You know, when you played 5-a-sides on a Friday, it was always split up into the Scots against the, and then you'd split the teams. It might be the Scots and the Welsh against the Irish and the English, and then it was very competitive, and the feet used to fly around.
But again, in them days, when you were playing, it was a British game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and if you looked at the time, we had the British Championships, you know, where they don't do it, well, they were called the home championships. They don't do them anymore now, which is a bit of a shame, really, because I think it was great for the for all the British people, and there was always that competitiveness between it. So yeah, it's sad that that's sort of disappeared now from the game, but that's inevitable with the way time goes and the way the things change, you know.
Now, when's your book out, and what's the title of your book?
The book has been one of these concepts. It's been 5 years in the making, and the only reason it's been 5 years, Simon, who wrote the book, it's just us getting together, you know, because I've been sort of all over the world, really. You know, I've got a son in America, I've got a son in Thailand, and he was in Dubai. Stephen is here, so we've been here, there and everywhere. So it's been very hard to sort of pin me down, and we got it pinned down at one stage, then we read through it, then we changed the law, and it's been off and on, really, you know, for 5 years, just changing things around, changing things about, you know, maybe people are not really interested in what your upbringing from a very young age. People like Stephen reads books, Jason, my eldest son, reads books, Garrett reads books, and they said these are the points that people want to read about. So I was trying to change things and put things in about, you know, I had 25 managers in my career, 25 managers, and 14 clubs. You know. Who
was the best?
Well, I would say that there wasn't really one particular who you'd go, he was the best one, because I played under Brian Clough, who was a phenomenal manager. You talk about knighthoods, he should have been knighted. As soon as he won the European Cup for the second time, he'd won the championship with 2 different teams, provincial teams, and which will never be done again. And everyone else gets knighted. And all of a sudden, why doesn't Brian Clough get knighted when he was alive? It stems from when Leicester won it. I remember reading an article on Facebook. It said, "Oh, they should knight Ranieri for winning." And I write, "Hang on a minute. We had one of the best managers. He was an English manager who done this, and we can't knight him. Why would we give it to someone else?" You know? And it was no dispute. It was a phenomenal achievement, what Leicester did, but a phenomenal achievement for me is winning the championship with 2 provincial seasons, and then back to back winning the European Cup. That is so him as a manager. Ron Saunders as a manager, because he was focused on what he had. Most of the successful managers have got this channel vision about what they want. Nothing gets in the way. Players don't get in the way. If you're not doing the job, you're out. You know, and Brian Clough was the same. It didn't matter whether he was 16 years old or 40 years old. You would play in the team if you were doing your job. If you wasn't doing your job, you were out of the team. Ron Saunders was the same. I like Bill McGarry as well. He was my first manager when I came back from South Africa. And Bill was from the old school.
Now that was Newcastle, wasn't it? No, sorry, Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Wolverhampton Wanderers, and then he sold me, and then he bought me back when I was leaving Forest. So I went to see him again. He changed, he mellowed a little bit. I used to say to him, "Have you changed a bit?" So he said, "Yeah, I've mellowed. I've coached more." Whereas it was, you know, if you looked at the likes of Ron Saunders and Bill McGarry, you were a lot of running. There was a lot of running pre-season. So there was a lot of running. And with Bill McGarry as well, if you wasn't in the first team, you used to go what we call Cannock Chase in Brockton.
Yeah.
And run up them hills all around there, which I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a sort of a bit of a fitness freak. And people say to me about, about football and that. I said, I've worked on the docks for 5 years.
Yeah.
I was like up at 6 o'clock in the morning and getting back at 7 o'clock at night and then training in the evenings. I says, and I know what I'd rather do. I'd rather be playing football, kicking a football around than working on the docks. No disrespect, I'm not being detrimental to people who work on the docks, but it was my ambition to play football. And if I had the choice of being an electrician or being a footballer, then there was no sort of contest really. So it was just remembering, and I have this with regards to. I was a supporter.
Yeah.
Who went and watched football, and it didn't matter whether it was Everton or I went to watch football wherever I could go and watch football. And I remember my feelings standing on the terrace watching, and what my feelings were towards Alan Ball and these types of people. And when I met them over the years, I was in a little bit of awe because I watched them, and I used to meet Bally quite a lot on the golf things, and tell him so. But so I used to say to people, I remember being on the terrace, and so I know what a supporter wants. So if the supporter comes up to me and asks me a question, then I don't ignore it. I remember being on the terrace and what I wanted. So you'd sort of give them whatever they wanted, whether it be autographs, whether it's pictures, whatever the case may be. You just remember them sort of days. So I was a little bit, I don't know, from the old school, I suppose. I see it now. It frustrates me at times.
It's changed unbelievably, hasn't it? The modern game now. I'm not a great lover of the modern game. I'll be honest. I think there's such a difference between players of yesteryear and players today. They're almost like the untouchables today. You can't get close to them. You can't get your autograph. You can't ask them questions.
It reminds me a little bit when I went to America and played in America, and we had a thing that when we played the game, they went over to Tannoy and said, "Meet the Timbers at the Benson Hotel." So all these supporters like, "What do you mean, meet the Timbers?" So a few of them started turning up. And so we'd had sort of the first game was 7,500. And the last game was 34,000 watching us. So we used to go to this hotel, and it started off, as I say, with a few people, and a few people said, "I can't believe this." Like American football, basketball, baseball, any of these, they would never ever mix with us. Why are you coming to? Because we want to promote our sport. We want to tell you about it, and you've never seen it before. So the word got round. And then it was in the end that you couldn't get into this Benson Hotel for the supporters and all of them were the same thing, come up and said the same thing. "We can't believe that 30,000 people go and watch you and you come here and have a drink with us and have a chat with us about the game and talk about it." And I think that that's sadly gone now. I think that they've gone, our players now have gone like the American football and American baseball. They're earning that much money, but they don't have to really bother with support. And I don't think they've got what's called, I call it, the life cycle of intermingling with people. I think they just shut themselves, isolate themselves a little bit.
But again, going back to you worked for 5 years on the docks. These kids, they get into these academies at the age of 7 and 8, and lots of them just go through that academy system and are little footballers and are little gods from an early age. And I suppose they've always had everything thrown at them, so it's hardly surprising that some of them turn into the prima donnas that they've clearly turned into. Well, we've created this problem, haven't we, really?
We do create the problem, and I think you're right. And I look sort of throughout my career, and players that I've met who couldn't, if they were going on holiday, they couldn't organise going on holiday because what happened as a footballer, if you went and played somewhere, you were just handed a boarding pass. Turn up, give your passport in, handed a boarding pass, and everything was, all your luggage, everything was looked after. And I used to, and I'd be carrying my luggage, and the lads would say, "Why don't you just let?" No, I'm used to carrying my own luggage. I'm not getting other people to carry my luggage. You know, so it's changed a little. And I think what we've tried to do with the book, and what, you know, Simon Goodyear and I, when we sat down, is that we've tried to give the feeling of a supporter come footballer, but still remembered his roots of where he came from, and never really gone above my station. And I think it's helped really that Kathy and I met when we were 13 years old in Speke, because she come from the Dingle area and moved to Speke as well, around the corner, 5 doors away. So I think it's helped that we've been together all these years. And she's sort of like me, but probably a little bit more than me, because she doesn't seem to be in awe of anyone. Yeah. You know, she's sort of, so she keeps her feet on the ground at times.
So who are you in awe of?
Well, I'm in awe. I would say that I look about successful people, like players. Okay. If I look, you know, like the likes of, in my day, was Alan Ball and people like that. But I've been fortunate enough through football, have met quite a substantial amount of people. Yeah. That I look at, like Robert Plant. We were talking about Robert Plant. I've met Robert Plant a couple of times, and of course remember him from Led Zeppelin. Moody Blues, all the Moody Blues. Met all the Moody Blues. Met, you know, one of his people is Tony from Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi. Yeah. You know, I sadly went to Helen's funeral, and the amount of people that turned up was phenomenal. And there was people there, you know, like Jeff Lynne flew all the way over from Los Angeles just to attend. I said, "How long are you over for?" He said, "Oh, I'm just coming for the funeral and then I'm going back," you know. But to sort of them type of people and meeting sort of, you get a bit of a, like when you play for England and that, and you go down to Wembley, and then all of a sudden these people turn up for the games, and you're like, oh, status quo. You know? Yeah. And you play I played in testimonial games where Elton John, Robert Plant, all the Black Sabbath lads, all the Led Zeppelin lads, because when you talk to them, all they want to be is footballers. Exactly. And all footballers want to be is rock stars. Yeah. So it's sort of one for the other. You know, so and the sad thing is, for I said to my son Stephen, who's he's a singer and he's got his own band and everything, and he's wrote a lot of music. I said to him, I said, the only thing is, I said, I lost my voice when I got kicked in the throat by Viv Anderson. I was going to head the ball and he kicked me in the throat. And I used to.
Who was you playing for at the time?
I was playing for Villa and he was playing for Arsenal. Oh, yeah. And my voice changed. So I've gone from being not bad at singing to all of a sudden awful at singing. And I said to Stephen, my son, I said, the only thing is, I said, I've been on Top of the Pops twice.
You was #1 as well, weren't you? We got The Whole World in Our Hands in 1978. Yeah. I bought that record.
Did you?
Yeah.
Paper Lace.
Yeah. But, I mean, going back to that 70s team of Nottingham Forest, I mean, how good were they? There were similarities between Forest of those times and Aston Villa. That when you went to join the Villa, there was no. I'm not being disrespectful to any of the players, but they had no massive stars, did they? No. They were a great team that both played great football and played football the way that football should be played, and played with very few in the team and had a really, really small squad, didn't they?
Well, we did, because at the time, if you look at, I was talking about this the other day. If you looked at that Forest team, of how many players you could take out that Forest team and put in another team, and then be said, you know, 2 centre halves where everyone said they're slow, they're not doing it. Larry Lloyd and Kenny Burns, but no one got past them. You know,
Frank Clark.
And then you look at, you know, Schultz in goal. All right, when we got promotion, Schultz wasn't in goal, but when we won the championship, Schultz, probably 15 points.
Yeah.
He saved us that season. So we had a great bunch of lads, and I think that was also not only a great bunch of lads, we had a great bunch of wives as well, because Cloughie was insistent that we all done things together.
Yeah.
You know, so when we'd done things, he invited all the wives and he invited all the girlfriends and all the players, and it was just a great bunch of lads, and you know, we used to just get on together. Like everything, you have arguments.
Yeah, of course you do.
But it wasn't like arguments that went festered on. It was just finished. That's it, finished. It's end of the story. And the same happened with, you know, Aston Villa. And if you look at the two teams, how many players they both used, there's very, very few players in each squad that won the championship. But it was, you know what it was to do with? You didn't want to go out the team because you knew you wouldn't get back in the team. And that's what it was all about. And you were playing for your bonuses, and you were playing because you didn't earn a lot of money. So it was, you know, it was one of them sort of situations that you just made sure that you kept fit and stayed in the team, basically.
What was Cloughie's greatest skill? Because, I mean, you often hear he'd have made a great England manager.
Well,
he should have been the England manager. He wasn't. I don't think he got it because the FA were frightened of Brian Clough. I think the establishment are frightened of Brian Clough. Brian Clough said things as he seen it, and he put noses out of joint, and he annoyed people. But Cloughie was a one-off and an absolute god, in my opinion, who believed in simple things and preached simple things. He kept the game simple. It struck me that he didn't overcomplicate it for you. Your training, I'm guessing, was quite simple. The way you played football was quite simple, and he put it across in a way that probably only he could have put that across.
Well, I would say his greatest asset is his man management and his personality, because he annoys you at times. But he was probably one of the few managers that you could have an argument with at 10-3 and then still go out at 3 o'clock and give him 100%. There's not many managers that you could say that, because normally when you fall out with a manager, you just, I'm not bothered now. I'm not. But he just had this ability to get the best out of players. I always remember he called me in his office one day, and he said to me, and it was him and Peter Taylor, so he said, we want to ask you the question. I says, yeah, go on then. So he said, what do you know about this Kenny Burns? And I looked at the both of them and I said, you serious? So they said, why? And I said, he's got too many problems, you know. I said, he's just a firecracker, and he'll just go off, you know. And he said, can he play football? I said, oh, he can play football. I said, he's got 2 good feet. I said, he can do it, pass the ball, whether you just pass it 5 yards or pass it 50 yards, he can pass the ball with either foot. You know, strong character, but you know, talks is that he said, right, okay, that's all I want to know. He said, I just want to know, can he play? He said, because I'll manage him. And that's what he did. He ended up, that was what happened. He come to the club, stepped out of line a couple of times, was put in his place, and got player of the year at the end of the season. And he always got Kenneth. And Larry always gets annoyed because he never got any of that. So it was, I think that the simplicity that he had with regards to, it was never ever a complicated thing. It wasn't, you know, it was half-time team talkers. Larry, you're the centre half, head the ball. You know, McGovern, give the ball to Robinson. You know, make a tackle. Withe, get on the end of crosses, get me a goal. That was all it was. It was just basic, simple things. But it was, you know, what he said it from the heart, and it was what he believed. And as he said, if God wanted you to play in the sky, he would have put grass up there. You know, because he just wanted to pass the ball and play the ball. And you know, that season, you look at, there's a match of the day incident where we played at Old Trafford. And we absolutely annihilated them, and we won 4-0. And you injured your foot when one of the goals went in. Woodcock scored. Yes, you jumped up that high. You come down and injured your foot, didn't you? So, but honestly, that was one of the best performances that you could, because everyone was thinking, United, you know, they're always, and we just, unbelievable it was, that game. And because it was on Match of the Day, it was even better.
Yeah.
You know, it was even better. And Kenny was like, where's he gone, where's he gone? And then he's hit this volley, he's volleyed this ball, and I looked and I thought, oh no. And it was like in the top corner, right in the top corner. And all of a sudden, from nowhere, I see this hand appear, and he just tips it over the bar, and he pulled off this save, and I thought, they take the corner, we clear the ball down the field, and I scored, and we win 1-0. And that was, you know, what we talked about 15 goals. So there's games that you've played in that stick out in your mind. So I've tried, through the book, tried to put them sort of games into the book and talk about, you know, the likes of Brian Clough and some of the things that he did, the likes of Ron Saunders, the likes of some of the managers, the likes of managers like Willie Bell. You know,
was it Willie that brought you to Birmingham just after Freddie, or was Freddie still there at the time?
Freddie flew to America to come and watch me play, and signed me when he come to America and signed me in America. Yeah. And then I got stuck in America, I couldn't come back. I missed the first 4 games, which they'd lost.
Got ya.
And then when I came back, we lost the first one, won the second one, won the third one, and then they sacked him. They sacked Freddie, and then Willie took over as manager. And to be perfectly honest, you know, in 25 managers, people say, well, who's the best?
Yeah.
And what I say to people is this: I've learned from every single manager that I've had, and Willie learned me how to not be a manager. And that's no disrespect to him. He just wasn't. He wasn't a manager.
He was a coach, wasn't he, Willie Bell at the time?
He was the coach at the time, and he took over. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not just saying this because he didn't fancy me, but he wanted his players in. He wanted to change the players around, and he brought in Gary Jones, he brought in John Connolly, you know, Howard was there. Howard helped me a lot. Howard Kent, when he was the captain of the team, he helped me a lot with regards, because I was just a bundle of energy. I just run everywhere. I was chasing people back, and Howard said, "What are you doing? You're not a defender. Why are you chasing people?" I said, "Because I want the ball. I want to get the ball back." And he was saying, "Do you stay up the field? We'll get the ball to you." So he helped me a hell of a lot, and he tried to sign me for Everton when he took over at Everton, and I would have went at the time, but Doug wanted me too much money from it at the time.
But before,
there's a couple of questions on the question.
Oh, go on then.
Chat box. Can you read?
Yeah. James Walsh, who was the hardest centre back that you played against?
Well, look, people ask me that. You know, they always ask me who's the hardest, and I don't really look upon the hardest.
Who was the best?
It was probably Lawrence and Hansen at Liverpool. They read the game very well. Always hard to play against. Both of them were quite quick. So it was always a little bit of I always thought it was a battle with them.
Because you could handle yourself, well, as a centre forward, couldn't you?
It was learnt over the years that, from a very young age, that I always had this thing of never ever let anyone see you hurt. And the harder they kicked you, the more you got up and just give them. Well, I had a few people who used to say the Withe glare, because I used to just look at people, and that used to frighten them to death. Just looking at them.
It was that beard as well that you had, Pete, because you looked almost like a prehistoric throwback from the 50s, didn't you, when you were playing, and like you used to have the wristbands, and when smoke used to start blowing out of your ears, even the most ferocious of centre-halves, you could see them quivering a little bit.
Well, I tried to. I wouldn't say. People say, "Oh, you built your game on aggression."
No, you didn't. You were a player as well.
I could play. But I never took crap from anyone. And if someone, but I was a protector as well. So the lads that I played up front, like played with Trevor, you know, if someone was kicking them, you'd protect them. Shorty was the same. Alan Shoulder at Newcastle. Tony Woodcock when it was you tried to be what. Well, you tried to be the protector, and you'd go up to centre half and say, "Hey, leave him alone, because I'll be coming after you." And that's the way I was always sort of brought up. That and Cloughie learnt me a big lesson. He said to me, I had a bit of an argument with him, and I said to him, "I can't believe you as a manager. You finished. You snapped your ACL. You finished your career at the young age of 26. You were a great, striker." And yet you ask us to play when we're injured, when we're not fit. And he just looked at me and he said, it was the saddest day of my life when I couldn't play football. Play every game you can because it could end tomorrow. And I went, I understand what he's talking about now. I understand exactly what he's talking about.
And that is the problem. That it could, as any player, whether you know 1 to 11, you know it is a short career, and it's sadly for Cloughie it was cut rather short. Can you ask Pete what he thinks as a proper hard man centre forward, and all the diving basically in the modern game? What do you reckon about the diving, Pete? It never happened in the 70s, did it?
It happened a couple of times. I remember we played in a, funnily enough,
the final.
Stephen's sitting there. Stephen was, I had to go to Germany and Austria with Forest to play in a pre-season. And we played against Austria Vienna. And there was a centre-half who played for them called Petzai, who was marking me. And Stephen was due to be born. And he said I had to go on the tour. I couldn't stay. So it wasn't like in the days where you say, oh, my wife's expecting a baby. Anyway, I had to go on this... on this trip, and this Petzai was playing, and Schultz had pumped this ball over the top, and it went over my head, and I looked round and I thought, he's just going to head it as a centre half. He's just going to head it clear. Yeah. And he'd made a fatal error that I always say to centre halves: whatever you do, don't let the ball bounce. So I'm starting running now, and he's let the ball bounce. Well, I can cover 30 yards by the time that ball's come, and I've got to the ball. And sort of Woody's now running with me, and I've headed it down, and Petzai butted me straight in the nose and smashed on my nose, pouring with blood and everything. So Jimmy Gordon, who's the trainer, come on and started wiping it. He said, "Oh, you're all right, you're all right." I said, "Jimmy, it's broken." So he said, "Oh, it does look a bit crooked. Give me the cotton wool." So I put the cotton wool up my nose. Yeah. And the end of the story was, there's 3 minutes to go. We're winning the game 1-0. Robbo plays a ball into me. The referee's standing there. Petzai standing here, he's punching me in the ribs from this side so the referee can't see him. So I've gone like that, and I've just put my arm up to stop him, and he's gone down on the floor. And I remember standing over him, looking at him and said, "Are you serious?" And the referee sent me off. So it was, and then of course I went home, and when I got sent off, Peter Taylor come to me, he said, "Oh, by the way, Kathy's had another boy." And I was like, that sums my day up, that really, but at least it's pleasing that I've got another son, as it were. So
we've got to talk about Villa, and I'm guessing if you could replay any game that you've played in your career, it would be on the 26th of May in 1982, when you guys went on and made legends of yourself. The greatest team ever in the history of West Midlands football.
I think that's... when you look at games and you look at a European Cup final, and if you remember in them days, we're talking about with Forest, we're talking about the Liverpool, we're talking about the Manchester United, even Celtic, you know, was the first ones to win it.
67,
We were trying to keep it going, keep it emulated really, but no one gave us a cat and nose chance, because if you remember, Bayern Munich had 13 internationals playing for them, and we had 2 internationals playing for us. So, but we were actually very confident in ourselves. Ron, as you know, had left when we got to the quarter-final, which was a big shock to us. Tony took over and didn't change anything, so that was a good thing, because if someone else would have come in, maybe it would have changed, and we might not have done it. But we were quietly confident in ourselves. When I speak to Ron after that, he actually said to me that he had a decent bet on us to go on and win it. And he didn't put the bet on till when we sort of got to the quarterfinals. And it was a significant game. But I look upon other games as well. I mean, I look at the Middlesbrough game. The Middlesbrough game was a massive game for us as a football club, because it was our last home game. If we lose it, then maybe things have changed with regards to what Ipswich think they're feeling. If you go on and win it, then Ipswich are like, oh, they beat Middlesbrough. All the players were saying to me it's a bogey team. They never beat Middlesbrough. They're always sort of beating us. And I said, what do you mean? So he said, well, you look over the seasons, we've never beaten Middlesbrough. I said, oh, that's funny, that, because I've never been the losing side. And I've always scored against Middlesbrough. So all the lads were all lifted. And of course we went out, it was match of the day. We went out. It could have been 10. It was one of them games where we just... There was this incident that Motson's making a comment and said, I can't believe Middlesbrough can't get out of their half. He said they're just pinned down for like 15 minutes. And we just kept... We lost the ball, won it back, lost the ball, won it back, created chances. I hit the post twice and then scored probably... Stephen, my son, thinks it's probably one of the best goals he's ever... Or he thinks it's the best goal that he's ever seen me score. And it was hours and hours and hours of practice. Of just practicing against Spinksy and against other goalkeepers, Jimmy Rimmer. And I've just practiced people pinging balls. And I always studied centre-halves and always studied goalkeepers. Because if I want to do so, I want to know where the centre-half. And people ask me nowadays and saying about, oh, you know, how did you do what you've done? And I used to say, well, it's very simple. It's a simple logic thing that I'm telling you now. When they say, what's that? I said, well, wherever the centre-half was, I wasn't. And like some of them say, what do you mean? And I said, well, you don't score a goal if you're standing next to the centre-half. So my job was to lose the centre-half. And I used to spin off to the back or go to the front, and on this occasion Tony just checked inside. I spun off centre-half. He's a mate of mine called Billy Ashcroft.
Big lad, one blonde-headed lad.
And then when it comes in, you know, I'm in for... But I teach people how to head the ball. Shoulders square, head it with your forehead, keep your eyes open, keep your mouth shut. And just... I know the goalkeeper's going to travel this way once it's pinged to the far post. So head it back across them, and you'll see a lot of goals that I score. I head it back across where the goalkeeper can't change his flight. So he finds it very difficult to change his. So I look at sort of that game, and that changed because we won 3-0. And that basically, we're thinking to ourselves at the time, well, they're playing Ipswich next week, and we can't see them winning. But what did they do? They go and beat Ipswich up at Ayresome Park. And that changed it completely. We got 3 points and they lose 3 points. And in the end, as you know, we won it by, you know, it wasn't just a 1 point and goal difference or anything like that.
You won it at Arsenal, didn't you?
Well, we lost
the trophy. You got beat 2-0, didn't you?
We lost at Arsenal 2-0, which is, we didn't really play that well. But, you know, that game got us, won us the championship, got us in the European Cup. And then the European Cup, the players were quite relaxed about it. We were taking pictures before on the pitch. I think the Bayern Munich players must have been looking at us thinking to themselves, you know, they look confident, you know, looking to the wives. And it just so happened, funnily enough, that Kathy, my wife, was sitting, and behind it was Brian Clough sitting doing the commentary.
Okay.
And he gave her one of them. He got one of them. So Kathy got one of them off him. And then, of course, when I scored the goal, he was just as chuffed as anyone. You know, because I think that, you know, he probably thought at the time, you know, he's probably he hasn't got another chance of winning what we won, the 2 European Cups. But of course, when I done it, he was just as chuffed as anyone today. Sorry. But
that goal that you scored, I was saying to you earlier, one of the best goals that I've seen in a European Cup final, because you won the ball almost on the halfway line. You knocked over your German opponent. You played the ball to Dennis Mortimer. Mortimer played it out to Shaw, who riddled and lost his defender. Put a phenomenal ball to Tony Morley. Morley then, the defender, didn't know if he was Arthur or Martha. He was on his arse. Morley's pinged it in, and you, with you're a left footer, ain't you?
I am a left footer.
And you put it in with your right foot, hit the post, and then straight in.
But it's funny, you know, what I said to you before is that I practiced for hours and hours and hours practicing that situation, whether it's a header, whether it's a shot. And it just so happened that the shifting of my... So if you see Argan Tyler's, I've gone to the near post and I've spun to the back post. So I'm now coming out and Argan Tyler's stranded in no man's land. So when I've now changed my position. And some people say, well, when they come out, you're left footed, why don't you just bend it in that corner? But the ball come across
having a laugh.
where my body shape was. It had to come across. And although I'm a left footer, I do practice or practiced every day. with my right.
Yeah.
And when it sort of bobbled because of the pitch and just sat up a little bit. And then, but I was always, in my mind was, make good contact with the ball. This is what you're making me. And it was sort of split seconds, but goes through your mind in slow motion.
Yeah,
and of course, yeah. And then I hit the post, and I said to people now, I said, well, what I was trying to do is play a 1-2 off the post, but that net stopped it coming back to me.
Which is always a great thing to do, and that net stops, yeah. England career as well. You were 29 when you made your England debut against Brazil.
Yeah.
Did you get Socrates' shirt? What's the connection with Dr. Socrates?
I didn't.
No.
He played. I actually got the centre half who was marking me. I got his shirt, and it was funny because you want to keep your first shirt.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I don't really want to swap my shirt, but I want, because I watched Brazil and I thought Brazil, And one of the lads said, oh, you put the other shirt on. So I said, what other shirt? He said, you get 2 shirts, there's another shirt in the bag. So he said, take that one, take your first one, put that in the bag and put your second one on and swap that. And that's what I did. I ended up getting, I've still got the shirt, I've still got the centre half.
Whose shirt did you have, Bayern Munich? Because when you lifted the cup, you'd got the Bayern Munich shirt. Did you get any stick for that?
Argenthaler.
Oh, was it Argenthaler's?
And Stephen, my son, because he knew that I'd made a mistake, basically, I shouldn't have swapped my shirt.
Yeah.
He contacted Bayern Munich and said to them, my father would like to swap his shirt back. Yeah. And they said, oh, it's in the museum. We've got a museum here. They get 350,000 people going through the museum.
Club in that Munich.
And he said, oh, we'd rather have Argenthaler's shirt back. So tell your dad if he will send it to him. And Steve said, no, you can't send it. He's going to come. He'll come and fly and swap the shirt with Argenthaler, which is what I did. I'd done it last year, I think it was. Then I flew over to, I went to watch it. No, I didn't go to the game. I went to the Allianz Stadium and met up with them and went into the museum and seen this fabulous museum. And then my shirt was hanging up. They just took it off the hanger. Yeah, done the change up.
Your wife's wrote a chapter in the book as well, hasn't she?
She has, yes. Yeah. She actually could write a book herself. I've said to her about it. Yeah. There might be a possibility that later on she might write it.
And when's it on sale? When does it go out? How can people hook up with you, Pete, and buy the books? Ultimately, that's what we want to do.
Yeah. Well, we've. It's going to be probably to print end of this month. It'll be printed. And then we're hopeful that we're going to get it before Christmas.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do book signings. So we're going to go to, all my old clubs and arrange book signings. And then what we'll do is, people will have an opportunity to buy them at the book signings, of course, and get them personalised signed. And then what we're going to do, we're going to sell them. We're going to sell them online as well.
Yeah.
So and then we're going to do later on. We'll do because some people don't like. There's a lot of people who like a hardback and they like a book, and there's some people who just read them on their Kindle and all these things like that.
I like a book. I like. I don't read many books. I get loads and loads of football books, and mainly I don't. I've got one about Dixie Dean. To me, again, growing up, he must have been one of your heroes, Everton. I mean, he scored over 350 goals, didn't he, for Everton?
60 goals in a season.
Exactly, yeah. But that annoys me with the modern game. I mean, Peter Crouch has just been... I think he's going into the Guinness Book of Records. He scored 50 goals with his head in the Premier League. Football started in the 1800s. Dixie must have scored probably 25 with his head in that one season. And it's almost as though the whole of the history has been erased from the game, and it's just all about the modern footballer, and I just think it's absolutely wrong. Shearer, when he was on about with Wayne Rooney, I'm glad you're in the 200 club now, it's getting lonely. Well, Jimmy Greaves has been ever so lonely in the 367 club. And these football players of yesteryear, it's almost as though they're forgotten, and what they gave the game, it won't be repeated. Like with Cloughie, it will never be repeated. Things that happened in yesteryear, you'll never see the like of that again. And it was the beautiful game in those days, when you played for the love of football, not for the love of the money.
That's true.
Pete, I think time has run out on us. We could have talked for 2 hours. You are very welcome to come back and talk about your managerial career, because you are the most successful manager of Thailand. You managed Indonesia as well, and when you was manager of Indonesia, you had 100,000 people turn up and about 20,000 locked out.
It was, yeah, it was phenomenal in them days. Yeah, so I will come back.
Yeah, definitely come back, and we'll look up again, because there's loads and loads of things, and I've only just touched the surface. I wanted to ask you about being replaced by Frank Clark. You knew your game was up when Cloughie brought on Frank Clark, and he scored his only goal against Ipswich Town.
That's true.
And he played 600 times. And also when you tried to catch that dog when you played for Newcastle United away at Loftus Road. Did you catch him, or did he get away?
I stunned him. I absolutely stunned him. It was like a stun gun.
And also as well, do you remember the old dancing footballers on Star Soccer?
Yes.
I've got no idea. Was it Wolverhampton Wanderers you was playing? You was doing something with your legs. That stuck into my brain as a young un.
Well, he used to do some...
It was Trevor East, wasn't it, that used to do that?
Trevor East, yeah. But it was funny. I was seeing Henry Newton. I was talking about Henry Newton. Yeah. And he was playing for Derby at Birmingham. Mm-hmm. And I always remember he played centre half, and he come over the top of me, and I'm sort of and he ends up on my back.
Yeah.
So I start running around with him, piggybacking him round, and then he's saying, "Okay, come on, let go now." He says, and the crowd went absolutely bananas, like they said, flipping out, looking at, because people didn't do sort of things like that. Mm-hmm. I always remember coming in the changing room, and Willie Bell went absolutely berserk. He said, "You should have thrown him off your back," and I'm like, "What are you on about?"
But football's fun. Fans like things like that.
They do,
football players are human, and it's great when you see them playing, enjoying the game, having a bit of fun. I think probably one of the last ones that used to play the game like that was Gaza. And they'd chuck him the Mars bars and call him Fat Boy. We'd open it up and start eating it. You don't have the characters in the game now these days. I think the game's gone sterile, and it's a game that I've almost fallen out of love with now. It's too defensive. Teams set up to not score goals and just keep a clean sheet, and if they can get a goal on the break or get a corner, then that's great, and to me it isn't. Cloughie had it right.
He did.
The ball is the tool of your trade. Learn to love it, young man.
Yes.
Peter, on that note, thank you very much for your time, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, and we'll be helping you sell your book as much as what we possibly can. And Stephen, thank you. And how's the golf going just before you go? What are you playing off these days?
Now I've gone up to 10, so... But I'm alright.
Cheers, Pete. Thanks.
Right.
Cheers, Stephen.
It's